reviews, discussions, and theories about films in horror, sci-fi, and genre. This is The Horror Deconstruction. Like, share, and subscribe to hear more.
What's up, everybody? It's The Horror Deconstruction. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, most likely on YouTube. Give us a like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell icon. Hit that thumbs up. Let people know that you like the show with your host Comp. For today, in the 31 Days of Horror for October, this film is called The Collection 2012. A man who escapes from the vicious grips of the serial killer known as the Collector is then forced to help rescue an innocent girl from the killer's booby-trapped lair. Directed by Marcus Dunstan, written by Patrick Melton and Marcus Dunstan, starring Josh Stewart, Emma Fitzpatrick, and Christopher McDonald. So this is the follow-up to the 2009 film The Collector. This is obviously 4 years later. Let me see, 2010, 2011. No, this is 3 years later. Anyway, so this movie is the much... I don't know if people like this movie or not. Ballyhooed, so I can't use that phrase. It's a sequel to the much-loved original film. Or not much-loved, but much culted after. The cult film, The Collector, which was originally written as a script to be put as a prequel for the Saw series, although watching them now, they must have changed enough because I can't imagine John Kramer from the Saw films running around killing families just for the sake of killing families. You know, they try to make him look like a nice guy in those movies, even though he's putting people in death traps for not washing their hands and brushing their fucking teeth. So with this film, this is the follow-up last film. Obviously, I'm not going to try to spoil this film like I didn't spoil the first one, but if you're listening to this one, I'm going to be spoiling the first movie. So in the first film, Arkin does not save the entire family from the Collector's crazy antics. He ends up, the father of the house gets killed, one of the daughters, a teenage daughter, and her boyfriend are killed, as is the wife. The only one that got out was a little 9-year-old, 10-year-old girl. He saved her life because he had a crisis of conscience, the house he was trying to rob in the first movie, so he got her to safety. At least he saved somebody because he himself has a daughter with a wife that he has to protect. And he ended up stealing a jewel. The jewel is never seen from again. In the first movie, it was in his pocket, but then he got into an accident, and he's kidnapped by the Collector, put inside the box that's in the very beginning of the Collector film, and whisked away into the darkness. So I guess this might be 2 years later, or a year later. I don't know how. It doesn't really specify how long a time frame it's been since the first film. But I assume some time has passed between the first and the second film. They even have an interview with I don't even remember if the wife is the same actress from the first film, but they are interviewing the wife. They're saying, "Oh, please bring him back. Please bring him back." There's like a whole news thing. It's back with the really cool editing and stuff like that from the first film, with the opening credits, which makes it look like a music video. Very Saw, very Seven-esque sort of editing. It does not have that piss color, green colored look to it like the first film does. So I guess, you know, they are not relying on covering up the cheapness of the movie with coloring. This movie looks like it has more of a budget, though not by much. I really liked the setup because actually I was confused by the setup because I liked it after the fact. This is a movie where I think you grow to like it after you see it. Within this duology of films. It was planned trilogy, but I don't think the third film is going to happen. But I think that with this movie, it's almost set up with some... And I'm going to have to spoil it up to a point for like the first 10 minutes of the movie, first 15 minutes of the movie. After that, I won't really give away what type of... who dies, etc. like that. But the movie is set up almost like... a typical slasher film, just like the first movie was sort of set up as a typical slasher film. It's an atypical slasher film, the first one, and this is more of a traditional, like how Saw films were. The original Saw, at least the original Saw trilogy, the first film was very, I wouldn't say it's groundbreaking, but it was very good for what it was. And then part 2 was a little bit more traditional by having more of a body count, having a bigger set, having as opposed to one room. This is a bigger house that they have to go through, even though essentially it's one room over and over. They up the ante. You have to make it bigger. You have to make the gore more explosive. and so you have to have a higher body count. And with this, there's more people. This is the Saw 2 of this franchise, and I myself don't remember liking Saw 2 that much, even though people like it. I did like the twist in Saw 2, but this is similar in the fact that they're trying to do also in a way Aliens 2 to Alien. Do you know if you've ever seen that film, how they drastically changed the type of film it is? Because the first film is the film itself. It's a home invasion film that goes wrong. In this film, we are taking it to the villain type of horror film, which I like. I like these type of films where they try to make the bad guys pay for what they've done. Sometimes I believe in justice. God, imagine that. And that's why I like The Devil's Reject so much. But in this one, they are trying to take a mercenary group. Midway through the film, at the beginning, it's a typical sort of here's a I Know What You Did Last Summer group of young kids going to a rave, and that ends up bad. It has shades of Hellraiser 3 with an attack on a club. I don't know how the fuck this guy gets away with this stuff. The Collector guy must be the most prolific serial killer in any horror movie, because he must be like the Bruce Wayne of fucking serial killers. Even though I don't want to spoil it, but he's putting gigantic death traps in hidden nightclubs. Like, wouldn't you notice that there's a ceiling with fucking the stuff that you would see when you're doing field work at a farm, like that kind of stuff. You're like destroying people with these giant barbed fucking whatever. It's a horror movie. You suspend disbelief for this type of film. But the movie begins out with a good red herring of characters that you think are going to be in the rest of the film, but they're not. Then it kind of goes back into the formula of the type of film it is, where somebody gets kidnapped. And we get Arkin back in the movie. Arkin, you think he would be dead in these type of horror movies, but he becomes the protagonist once again in the movie, because there is another main character played by Emma Fitzpatrick, who is the daughter of Shooter from the Happy Gilmore movies. That actor, Christopher McDonald, a very cool actor who's been in a lot of stuff. He plays the wealthy father of a young woman who lost her mother, and I think he's disabled from a car accident. It's basically they're paying a lot of money to Christopher McDonald to be the star, the recognizable star face of this film. So they pay him a bunch of bucks, and he gets to sit down in a chair and look, worried about his daughter. But you know what? He always delivers. That guy I've never seen that guy sleep on a role ever. And so it's nice to see him in this movie, even though if it's a very limited role, he's basically bookending the film. And so we are tasked with now trying to save Emma Fitzpatrick character, and it really is essentially a remake of Saw Part 2 without that gag in it with the I don't want to spoil it, but with the twist in that film. So but it also becomes mercenary horror, but that mercenary stuff doesn't really matter. We're introduced to new characters. Lee Tergesen, everybody knows him from, I didn't even watch the show, but he is from the HBO series, about prison. I don't know why I can't think of the show. I'll get it in a second. But Lee Tergesen plays like Christopher McDonald's right-hand man, and he's been taking care of this daughter for the longest time as well. Basically, it's like a two-dad situation. And he is tasked to, he was in Oz, there you go, Oz, the prison drama, he was in Oz. And his number one goal is to find this daughter, because she's essentially like a daughter to him as well as Christopher McDonald. And he brings a group of mercenaries with him. The mercenaries are comprised of Shannon Kane as Paz. I actually liked her, even though she doesn't really, there's nothing really you care about. She just seems to be the mercenary who's nice. There's nothing really different about her. She's just sort of a nice person. She's a very pretty lady. There's Andre Royo, who's in the film, and he looks like a bunch of other actors that I've seen before, so it's really weird. He looks like a bunch of actors that I've seen before, but he's in it. There's nothing special about him. He gets to be part of a cool action scene, not action scene, but a cool effect. That's all I'll say. And there's three other guys. There's one big lunkhead and another lunkhead they leave outside. I'm sure. No, I think that's about it for the mercenary groups. And they force Arkin, who has been through a serious amount of trauma, being the collector's kidnappee, to come back in and try to save this girl, because they try to make it look like he abandoned this girl, and the sequence where he is just gotten out of his case and he's trying to get the hell out of there, and the collector snaps up the girl. They treat it like at the end, like, oh, you abandoned this girl, you should feel guilt. I'm like, if I've been tortured for this, God knows how long by some freak and like cased up, I'd jump out that fucking window just like he did too and get out of there. Like, what could I do if I've been at the mercy of this guy? You think there's anything gonna change? He has his own child. Although they don't reference the daughter in this film, they do reference the wife. They should really like reference that, because fuck that. Like, I understand, he does feel some guilt about seeing it, but like, he's only gonna automatically imagine that she's dead. Like, there's a huge body count in this film, and it is graphic. It reminded me, if anybody's ever played the game Postal, the ending credits of the original version, not the like PC cleaned up version. PC as in politically correct cleaned up version, where you see like a bunch of bodies in this pit. There's like an image like that which is really cool. They stepped up the production design in this film, as in there's a room with the actual collections where the collector's making art. I don't know how the fuck this guy. This is all obviously it's too fantastical to even believe that this guy can take over a warehouse and put all these dead bodies everywhere and shit like that, and like make them artistic. And you're like, how the fuck could he do this unless this guy's a millionaire or something, and has like, he would need fucking King Koopa levels of security to keep people out of this building, because there's like homeless people across the street keeping themselves warm with like trash fire, and they're not gonna break into this building to keep warm. Like, come on. But I will say there is a very comical way that Arkin gets the it's very rude. It's a very rude way for him to get the ire and the attention of the police in the movie, which is pretty funny, but it is pretty fucked up. But I will say that I think this is, obviously it's not as good as the first film. If you want gore, it's got plenty of it. There's also a secondary character who is like, you don't know whether she's a good guy or bad guy. There's someone who also has been tortured by the collector, and she's been put in baby doll clothing. I think it's played by Erin Way. She's playing Abby, and she's just there. You already know what her deal is as soon as she's on screen. You can't make it more obvious than what she is in the movie. But I think that this movie works on some parts, but doesn't work. I think what works is the very satisfying finale to it. Like, they wouldn't even need a third film. Like, the thing is with horror films, and it'll be a spoiler if I just say it anyway, so I don't want to say it, but you're always, in a sequel for a film, you don't expect to see the characters from the first film to be in the second film, so it was nice to see that in this one. He's basically, it's funny to say, but Arkin is essentially the male version of a Final Girl, I guess, just like the guy from the Jason Friday the 13th movies. I forget the name of that character. But yeah, this guy, Arkin, is a very compelling character. I like him a lot. I think he redeems himself after the first film. He's not like an evil guy. He's just trying to make ends meet, and for his family. And in this one, I think for the fact that they're trying, they almost like forget that there was a first movie where like the guy's trying to sacrifice, like he didn't go back to save this girl at the beginning of the movie, so now he's trying to, and like he's trying to do stuff for his daughter, and there's no mention of his daughter in the second movie, I guess, so people wouldn't be like, I wouldn't fucking go back. Like, my daughter is like, I have a daughter. I got my own child to look for, right? But it's all morals, all this horse shit, like morals. So I do think that as a film, it's lesser than the first film. Most like every sequels are. This is how you will, if you view Saw and Saw 2. That's how I see Saw 1 and Saw 2. I see Saw 1 as great. I see Saw 2 it sort of is just focusing on the excess just to make it entertaining. And I'm fine. I like watching excess horror movies. But there was just something about part 2 that I just found boring. And so this one, there's a little bit boring element. I wouldn't say I was completely bored throughout the whole film. I actually found it pretty good. But towards the end, it's a very, very, very satisfying ending of this film. And these movies did not make enough money because there was supposed to be a third film called The Collected. And the way that the second film ends almost feels like it ends a complete series. But they had an idea for the third film, which makes me worrisome about how that would have affected this ending for this film. But apparently they took like 8 days and they were filming and then they stopped it, so I guess they ran out of money. Listen, I'm sure horror fans, if there's enough fans for horror movies where they can fund it like Kickstarter a movie, I can't imagine they wouldn't kickstart this movie. So I don't understand. That has to be one of the venues they went through to make this horror film, but they would need millions of dollars. I can imagine what the budget for these movies are, at least like $5 to $7 million, because like these movies don't look that expensive, but who knows? I don't know. So I would see a third Collector film if it was done. The Collector, I believe, is played by a different actor in this film. He's fine. He's just like, you do hear him speak just a little bit. He whispers in this one. You don't see him. He has that same sort of menacing look to him. He has that cool mask, and his eyes have that reflective glow to them. So I think it's an okay sequel with a really good ending, a very good ending. So I like the ending, the latter half, and how they deal, and all the gore and the violence. So if you're into a sort of disappointing but not better than average sequel, but a watchable sequel that is worth your time. It is worth your time. It is fine. It's fine. If you're looking for a satisfying ending that you could not find in the first film, that ending is in this one. So that's all I will say. I will not spoil it. That's why I'm telling you, just go watch the film. So it is a recommendation, but it is lower in quality than the first film, although everything production-wise is brought up. I think it's still worth a watch. So I would give this movie about a 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10. Just trying to have fun at a party, and you find your boyfriend cheating on him, and you break his nose, but something worse happens to him. And with that, this has been the Horror Deconstruction. Thank you for listening.